a lot of events we go to, it's very one way, one directional, meaning like it's usually you being a participant is actually information sort of being directed at us. So it's very unidirectional focus. And I don't like events like that as too much because I think you and I, are old enough and wise enough now to recognize that that only serves us at the beginning of like learning and
Yeah.
absorption, but it really doesn't enhance us as a human being that much anymore because you kind of hear the same thing repeated over and over again. I think I created an event like this mostly because I feel what I was missing is really about the evolution of how learning should be done, which is like taking content and then applying it into real life and that is really finding the right people and the right experiences to facilitate those discussions. Well, welcome back to another episode of Wabi Sabi. I'm so excited to really be here because this is the first recording since we actually met in Portugal.
Yep.
I ran an event there and Jim came over. So excited to see Jim in person. It's been a long time. Actually, I was thinking back, like how many years it actually been that I actually met you face to face. Now, we've done enough Zoom calls. We've done like all these recordings and stuff. I never gave you a big hug, man. It was just such a cool experience to be able to finally meet face to face. And we're on a different continent.
It was. And I had an absolute, I'm still buzzing from our time away. We've posted on socials some of the experiences that it was, and it was fantastic. It wasn't just an immersion of people that got together who had a collective interest in improving themselves, but you did that really, really well, is just teasing out of everybody, just basically help the whole group, but then also mixed it with fun and experiences. It was really great. I came home buzzing with infinite opportunities and ideas coming up. So thank you for that. It was absolutely awesome.
Oh, I'm so glad you were able to accept my invitation. And it was a great event. It turned out better than I expected, to be honest with you. And now that in hindsight, and I'm really glad how everything worked. Even the weather turned it on for us for the 2 days that, just for those 2 days we needed the weather to be turned on. So everything worked out really nicely. So
if you're curious, at any time that you're listening to this recorded, get on to Laurence's socials and have a look at the video that Kaya prepared his daughter. It was absolutely a great synthesis of some events. It captured one of the participants, James, just narrowly beating you in an axe throwing competition. And it was like when we were betting for sheep stations, James was basically the Iceman in the last throw of it. So it was really cool. But, what it highlighted for me, I think this is a really good segue into what I want to talk about. I guess from my perspective, I'd really love to talk about, not I want to, it's just how important it is to regularly immerse yourself and associate with people who are on a similar journey. You have mix it with a whole lot of fun and a great opportunity to grow.
Yeah, like one of my events, the event's called Beyond. And, if you're kind of going back, and I don't know when this episode is going to get released, but it'll be sort of late November when, the video's there. So you're absolutely right. I mean, for me, an event should be about a lot of events we go to, it's very one way, one directional, meaning like it's usually you being a participant is actually information sort of being directed at us. So it's very unidirectional focus. And I don't like events like that as too much because I think you and I, are old enough and wise enough now to recognize that that only serves us at the beginning of like learning and absorption, but it really doesn't enhance us as a human being that much anymore because you kind of hear the same thing repeated over and over again. I think I created an event like this mostly because I feel what I was missing is really about the evolution of how learning should be done, which is like taking content and then applying it into real life and that is really finding the right people and the right experiences to facilitate those discussions. And so today's topic is really about like, how do we elevate? And one of the things that you either you know it or you don't know it, you elevate by ensuring yourself that you're surrounded by amazing people. Now, that's easier said than done sometimes, but we've heard it so many times over and over again.
Well, Jim Rohn used to say that all the time, right? He always used to say that.
Yeah, and that comment was like, you are, as a person, you are the average of the 5 closest people that surround you. And so now I believe that was Jim Rohn, and whether that is true or not, but I think if you really evaluate yourself, I'd love for every listener or watcher of this is to actually evaluate that sound. It goes, is that true for you? I think that's
Mm.
something I think there's definitely some truth to that. And, that's the discussion we want to have today. So, Jim, let's start with you. Like,
Yep.
first of all, do you believe in that? I know the answer to that, but like, and when did you discover this phenomenon in terms of recognizing that in your life?
100%. I aspire to that quite a lot. And I set it as an intention to surround myself and be around people who have, they don't have to look the same, be the same, but approach life in a similar way. And to me, I think I noticed it in high school because I realized that some of the group that I was hanging around with, I realized, okay, they were fun. There was a sporting group that I was involved with. There was also the academic group that I really wanted to progress and move forward. And I kind of had an interest in both. And I realized that if I just hung around with the people who were interested in just sport and that's all they were going to do, they were heading down the wrong path, a path that I knew it was a problem. And I realized very early on that I had to have the strength of my own convictions and say no, that doesn't feel right for me. So I think that was probably the earliest inkling of it that sort of evolved from there.
That's a really good point. And I think the first thing I think people should take away is having the awareness, right, of the people around you and how that affects you is very important. And it doesn't really matter when you have that awareness, as long as you have awareness, period. And the reason why I say that is because I find that a lot of people, you either create your life intentionally or you create it unintentionally, right? That's probably the best way to put it. And the way you do it intentionally is that you actually have to be aware of what things influence the success in life, right? Because
Yeah,
if you know what are some of the key factors, and this is what we've been discussing all these episodes, is like what are some of the key factors? And they're not just one, it's not even just five, there's tons. But these are like just another 1%. When you need to think about is that the people you hang around, it is a definite, I believe, and you believe, it's a massive impact on the direction of your life and the success in your life. But you have to be aware of that. And
yeah,
for you to be able to have that awareness when you were young, that's amazing, because I'm sure that would have shaped you in some way, and it definitely created those many sliding
yeah,
door moments that could have gone either way. And
yeah.
that early
Absolutely.
decision would have changed the whole trajectory of your life. We might not even be sitting here like this based on
Yeah,
that choice back when you were 15 or something.
yeah, totally. I think there's a couple of different ways that you can reference situations and people. Either you internally reference or externally reference, i.e., you internally reference, you have your own reference point and say, how do I feel about this? What do I look at this? That tends to be like your compass or your guiding star, as opposed to externally, where you seek validation externally from other people, other situations. And I think for me, I realized very early on that I'm internally referenced. And so a
Mm,
lot of the times what's going on around me externally hasn't got as much bearing. And so if I feel congruent with my values, if I feel that I'm on the right path, if something's a yes, for me, it's either a heck yes or a hell no.
mm,
And it can be that clear. And I think that extends to people who I choose to spend my time really and I think this is something that I've become consciously aware of as I've grown and matured, is there's a finite amount of time that I have in this earth. And I've
mm.
become more aware of it as I've gotten older. And so for me to choose to spend time with people that I really need to and want to spend time with means that I have to be selective in some of the time I spend with people who aren't necessarily on the same path and journey.
I think just to make sure we go to this point, I think I love that, by the way, the internal, understanding your own internals and whether which one's what guides you. But one of the things I think is important is that when you're younger, I find that, I don't know if you agree with me, Jim, but like for me, I find when you're younger, my advice to younger people, and I'm saying younger, usually like, in your 20s, say yes to more things than saying no. But as you get older, that kind of switches over a little bit. I think probably in your 40s, I would say, like things that you start to realize, like, okay, time is more precious and it's more about
Mm.
more saying no than saying yes to. I'm not sure if it's like it, and I know these ages are ranges and depending on where parts of your life it is. But like for me, I think that's really important because we're both, a little older than, though I guess it depending on who's listening. But I just find that early 30s, I think is saying yes to more things. And then later on, there's a transitional period of time. And then you start, for us right now in my late 40s, it's like, it's more no's
Yeah.
than yeses. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah. You get selective. You really do. I think definitely in the earlier years, I guess when you're seeking to be part of a group, you're seeking confirmation, you want to be included, you're more likely to want to do what other people are doing, and I wouldn't say please, but really potentially compromise what's really important to you to be a part of a group. I think as time goes on and you do get more comfortable in your skin and become aware of what's really important to you, who you are and what you stand for, you probably are more selective. And I think it's probably more selective for me than anything over time.
I think that happens mostly because you're more in tune with who you are as you get older.
Yeah,
With trial and
yeah,
error, you figured out like what's important to you, what's not, who's important, who's not, and you start to realize like time is more of a limited resource. Where when you're younger, and you have all the time in the world, like I'm sure we will all love to go back to our 20s and go redo some of the
yeah,
things that and say some yeses to certain things, but we can't do that. And so
yeah,
it's like, okay, well, how do we squeeze the most out of life now? And it is about being very selective, because I think every decision we make, every choice we make, and let's bring it back to today's topic, like for every choice you make with, say, friends or, people in your circle, you're saying no to someone else because it takes time,
yeah,
right? And that's decision. Like
yeah,
decision is to kill off options. And when you make a decision to do one thing, you are killing options for something else. And
yeah,
I think that's important. And so as you get older,
yeah,
you start realizing that you can't do them all. So you have to be very selective, and you might as well choose and put bets on the things that are going to reap you the most reward towards what you already value or know where you want to go. But I
yeah,
think when you're younger,
yeah,
you don't necessarily have that direction yet. You're not clear because you're not sure. So therefore, you kind of place multiple bets,
yeah, yeah.
and hopefully one's a winner. And that's how I think that's how we kind of utilize life that way.
Yeah, I also want to make the distinction that the people you associate with you aren't always the people who are going to agree with everything that you say, because you may have someone who is contrarian to what you have, who you really love spending time with because they alert you to your blind spots. They alert you to a part of yourself that you weren't even aware of, or challenge you to step the hell up. And as a result of that, you know that that person is great for you. And so the other distinction, I guess, is in being eternally referenced, is I've always ensured that I don't always have yes people around me. As much as we all want to go, yep, this is what I want, and everybody says, yep, that's exactly great idea, do that. The pushback sometimes that comes from people who you really value, they may annoy you at the start, but then you go, you know what, I sat with this, and I really appreciate who you are in my life because you've challenged me to think more with more depth or think more broadly than I otherwise would have. So I count those kind of people as cherished, sort of amongst the cherished five, so to speak. Right? As
Yeah,
well.
it's definitely someone who you gotta trust as well, and like the trust factor does come into play, and that they care enough about you to tell you
Yeah,
the truth. But they do it in a loving way, not to put you down. And that's the thing. Like you
yeah,
gotta those five closest people, you gotta know that they always have your back, and having your back means that they might tell you the truth that you don't want to hear sometimes, or to kind of bring, at least in a way that you can hear it. And that's, you need that. Otherwise you're just in this echo chamber of that, thinking you're awesome at everything, and then realizing that,
yeah,
hey, you're not. So,
yeah,
so I
yeah.
think it's so important. Let's shift the discussion around. How have you, I think that, one of the common thing is that how do you find these people, because it's really difficult to do that. What is your process?
Look, that's a great question, and I like engaging with people, and the more I get to know about someone over time, I find the commonality and themes and what we have going, in common in that regard. So, here's the thing: like I've got some friends that I had from childhood, and they're great friends. They're not necessarily the friends that I discuss my most inner thoughts or visions or dreams, or because they were awesome for that part of my life and my world.
Yeah, you
And I
say that for
think
the
what
podcast.
yeah, I no, but what I mean by, like, I don't ever believe we're stuck in cryogenics. I think we're evolving, adapting human beings, and so I can still have great friends that were great friends in a different time, and then as things evolve, it may shift the dynamics of a friendship and a relationship. So I value all friendships, and I never burn them. I never cut them off in a way that sometimes is spoken about in in personal growth or development. It's like cut the dead wood. I just don't like that feeling. It's just that I just find I'm naturally drawn to want to spend more time with people who I have commonality in and who help elevate me. And I think that that's how I do that. I get a internal feeling afterwards, after I spend time with them. I go, that was awesome. That was great. I really loved that. I had so much fun. I learned about myself. I want to do it again. And that's really how I do it in there as well. I don't keep KPIs in there. I think that just for me, it's a bit more humanistic in that regard.
Right. You don't have a spreadsheet.
I don't have a spreadsheet for that. There's other things I keep spreadsheets for. I've got friends who disclosure time. When every book I read, I'll read a book, I'll write a summary, I'll keep notes and whatever, and I can refer back to them. So that I'm pretty pedantic about. But my friends and KPIs, no, just very heart focused in that regard.
So you're not keeping track how many times I call you or message you or anything like that, and
no. But that's honestly, like Lawrence, just even in us, even in us, right? But we talked about this over the weekend with participants at the retreat. Was even in the time that you and I have known each other, which is over quite a while professionally, really that evolved, particularly in the last 2 years. And as a result of that, there was commonality, there was some themes, and that's, I think, how it goes. You might know someone for a while and they're kind of like on the outer circle, and then over time, hey, this is good. You've got kids, I've got kids, and there's commonality there. And that's how it expands and contracts. That's how I see those kind of friendships develop.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% for sure. And it is a very gut feel. So let's kind of go through my process. I feel like a lot of it's gut feel. It's very intuitive for me. When I meet someone, I just get a natural feel for whether or not they could be a potential. It's not like, oh my God, I met my, like that, the best person who's going to fit me in my five, who am I going to knock out? Right. I don't go through that process.
He's my top five.
He's my top five. Okay. Yeah.
We're going to
upgrade now. And sorry for number 5. You're gone to number 6 slot now. It doesn't work that way. But no, for me, it's like intuitively, when you meet someone, you get a gauge, and there's like this energy about someone. And sometimes I can't explain it. Everybody's gonna be different. For me, it's like I'm looking for really amazing people. So I'm not looking for it. So when I meet someone, I'm like, do I resonate with these people? And what are some of the? Usually, it's because we have common interests or common values, or they're just generally nice, like amazing people.
Yeah.
And I resonate with that. And so, but that doesn't mean like they're going to become my closest friend right off the bat. But like you said, it takes time, and sometimes certain friendship develops really quickly. A certain friendship takes a long time to mature, but it's no different than any relationship in life. And for me, it's that intuitive gut instinct. But I think the most important thing is nurturing that. So let's go into like maybe how you develop those friendships. I think for me, like a lot of close friends that I have, some of them, I don't think if I didn't engage or created the opportunities for them to know me or to get engaged, to have that connection, I don't think they would have gone out of their way to become friends with me, if that makes sense. Like it wouldn't maybe would have met them in a meeting or a conference or just in passing. Most people don't go out of their way to kind of develop friendship. And the move I made here in Portugal, since moving here, I made it really intentional for me to go up, like do more to engage in people and take the first step. Like rather than waiting for people to call you, I do the calling. And calling just could be like a message. It could be like checking on someone, and be more intentional about keeping relationships going, right? And it could just be a simple message, hey, Jim, was thinking about you today. Just wanted to see how you're doing. So actually, there's a tip. So here's one thing I do. I've learned this a long time ago. It just naturally came to me. Those moments where sometimes you're doing something random like gardening or even the shower or like whatever, just biking or walking, and all of a sudden like someone's name or the thought of that person just comes to your mind out of nowhere. Okay. I have learned, right, to take action on that. So in the past, I was like, just say I'm thinking about Jim. And then I'm like, oh yeah, when would I have some Jim? And then I guarantee you within the next 24 hours, you would message me and go, hey, Laurence, was thinking about you. I'm like, damn it, he beat me to the punch. Right. And so enough of that stuff happens to me.
It happens a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just go, you know what? I'm going to take the first action. As soon as I'm walking or something and I think of you, Jim, I might just go, all right, I'm going to just message Jim right now.
Yeah.
Honestly, it would just be a simple
Yeah.
thing. Go, Jim,
They're on the same
thinking of
wavelength.
you. How are you
Yeah.
doing? Um,
Yeah.
and that's it. It goes, and you don't even need to respond. I don't need you to
Mm.
respond. It's just more like, I was just thinking about you.
Mm.
And
Mm.
guaranteed, like, oh, well, I can't, get no percentage on it, but like, a high percentage, 80% of the time, you go, that's so funny. I was just thinking about you yesterday, or I was just thinking about you, or just talking about you. And it's
Yeah.
like this magical thing that happens. And even if they weren't, right, it doesn't matter to me, because it's like I made the effort to make that connection and keep that relationship alive. I know it's
Mm.
very difficult. I'm not a person, just so that there's clear, there's two types of people in this world. I think one type of person is like who has lots of connections and a lot of friends.
Mm.
I'm not that.
Mm.
I'm more of a
Mm.
closer circles,
Mm.
smaller groups of friends.
Mm.
Um, and those people are usually connectors that can connect me to other people at a second or third
Mm.
degree later on. So that would be one tip I would make to everybody, is to go, if something comes into your mind, I would action it right away. There's nothing wrong. Like, even if it wasn't productive or whatever, it will go a long way if you just do it more often. I think that's one of
Yeah.
good ways to do it.
I do the same thing, Lawrence. Particularly when I think of someone, I initiate. I do that same thing, and it's amazing how many times I'm like, "Yeah, man, I was actually just thinking about you as well too." So there's a energetic force field that is out there. It's a quantum field that basically we all respond to, and I think that's what happens there. There's a couple of interesting things that I wanted to point out too. You mentioned about intention and setting the intention as an adult. I think that happens a lot and has to happen because when we grow up and we go to school, your friendship circle or group is basically predetermined by your proximity. Hey, you're in my class.
That's right.
We're in the same class. We're sat next to each other. So that's your exposure, the sum total. Perhaps you play sport, you meet a few other people, but you don't know whether you're going to resonate with these people. And a lot of the times what happens for a lot of people as they grow is they stick with the same group of people because they've known them forever and they don't know anybody else. And as you grow, you suddenly realize, hey, there's more and more people that are really like me that didn't go to the same school. And so that's what happens. But that is coupled with, as we get older, we're less open to opening up new relationships. So we have to make it more of an effort. Because when you're a kid, hey, you're in grade 1 or 2, it's like, hey, you got brown hair, I got brown hair, you got black hair, I got, let's be friends. But that doesn't happen in the adult world. You have to be more intentional and they've got more criteria that you're looking for. So you do have to seek it out and you do have to basically make it as an intention to say, I want to connect, I want to meet people. I still want to cherish the friendships that I have. And for me to grow, I have to make it a habit of it rather than just turning up and there it is.
You make a really good point. I'm going to use an example here, and let's kind of go through this example. I don't know if it's helpful, but I would never offend any friends. I don't think. I hope, but it's nothing to knock on them. But I think it's a really important story. So when I first moved to Australia from Canada, I graduated from CMCC Chiropractic College, and I moved pretty much straight away. Actually, within like a month of graduating, I moved to Australia. And I happened to be in Adelaide, and that was where a lot of my locum work was done. And I loved it. I loved like Australia. I loved, the people. I loved the work. And I was telling all my friends, all my classmates, I go, guys, you got to come to Australia. Like there's so much work here. I'm having a blast. And this is within the first month or two. And sure enough, I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 4 or 5 of my classmates all moved to Adelaide within a 3-month period of
Wow.
time. And it was amazing. It was cool, right? I just spent 4 years with them. And now I'm like, they're all there and all the Canadians are all hanging out there, right? By the way, they're all still there, right? So,
Yeah.
so this is no offense to them, but there was a moment in time, I still remember it, was when I was with Karen, I was doing locum work and I had this opportunity in Perth, which is for those of you who don't know, Perth is like literally on the other side of the country, on the West Coast. And I remember I had to make a conscious decision. I had a job in Adelaide that was offered to me and I had a job in Perth. And I made this conscious decision to move to Perth instead of staying in Adelaide. One was for the job, but the second part was actually because of the friends I actually had in Adelaide. Like I said, I love them
Mm.
dearly. No offense to them at all. This has nothing to do with them, but it's actually has something to do with them. It was that I just spent 4 years with them. And if I stayed in Adelaide,
Yeah.
I knew I would fall into the trap of living to their expectations of me.
Mm. Yeah, for
That's what
sure.
friendship does, right? That's the flip side of friendship, right? Is that I will stay consistent, because this is based on what you just said there, Jim, because I would stay
Mm.
consistent to the image that I have my friends expected of me. Now, I know I
Yep.
can change any time, but it's hard as a human being to shift
Mm.
away from the core group you developed. And so I knew I came to Australia for one reason, was to, experience and discover, but I had to move. I had to move to Perth because I wanted to figure who I was. I was 27 at the time. I needed to figure out without any previous bias. It's like moving to a new school, right? Or moving to a new
Yep.
country. No one knows you, and you can kind of like, you're never going to change fundamentally your core, but there's certain things you might change,
You
switch.
can
And
reinvent yourself, right? You
you
can
re-
reinvent yourself
exactly,
and
without
go
any
hit
bias.
refresh and
Yep.
go. Yeah.
Yeah. Without any fear of doing so, because no one knows the previous you, the version of you.
Yep.
And I made that conscious decision. And that was one of the reasons, was because I felt that by staying there, some of my friends, it's nothing to do with them. It was me, would have held myself back because of their
Yep.
expectation, which is so weird,
Yep.
right? But I made that switch,
No,
and
no,
that's
I get
how,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I think that makes sense. See, it's human nature that if you've got a group of friends and someone wants to change something about themselves, their circumstances, there's going to be a little bit of pullback from the group. Don't get me wrong. The hardest, I've got some great friendships, exceptionally strong friendships in Australia. And to actually say, look, guys, we're solid here. This is fantastic, but I'm now moving to the other side of the world. You run the risk of challenging that friendship. But it's a case of saying, look, and it's nothing on not being happy with you. One of my greatest friends lives in Queensland. We graduated at the same time. We lived together going through chiropractic school, and like absolutely like a brother from another mother, and lives in Queensland. And literally, he's going, great. I'm moving back to Melbourne now. It'll be great. We'll get to see each other after 30 years. Other than just once or twice a year. It's like, hey, we're moving to the other side of the world. And he's like, okay, man, well, that's been the basis of our friendship anyway, so nothing changes. But our friendship's built on growth and development and improving yourself. And
Mm.
so that's one metric of it. But I get what you mean. It pulls on you, but then you've got to go, I've got to sometimes, they're the challenges that you've got to step through and navigate in order to really live a life of intention and design on your terms.
That's right. And it's not like, I know that they would never try to change me. That's not the point. It was more
Yeah.
like I would hold myself back. It was really more me
Yeah.
in those positions. And I think this is why it's so important for, if you got to expose yourself to different friendship groups. You got to expose yourself to different people, because you don't know who you can become if you don't actually elevate or put yourself in a position where you can be elevated by people that are wiser, smarter than you in certain circumstances.
Yeah.
And if you constantly be the one who's smarter and wisest in the group, you're probably in the wrong group, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and this is why we're
That's
talking
a
about the
really good
average.
point. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's a really good point. And I want to highlight too, like what I loved about the weekend was really, I don't know, it felt longer than a weekend, but the
It
time
was
in
3 days,
Portugal
three full
together,
days.
Peru,
Yeah.
well, three. Man, it felt like condensed. I think I got there early. It was an extra late. It was 3 full days, but it felt like a week. Um,
Yeah.
what I really loved about it was a new group for me,
Mm.
fundamentally. A lot of commonality, but so there was the excitement of learning from different people. Like I'm like you too. I know you participate in other people's programs, and that as a result grows you. And I do that regularly as well. Yes, we run our own programs, we do our own thing, but I still adopt the beginner's mindset. I'll regularly go in and plonk myself in the front seat of someone's workshop or seminar to learn, to grow. And it's usually because I want to improve myself. And this is what I loved. I was like, I mean, these are some concepts, ideas, and people who are really awesome, who I didn't know up until this weekend, but they've expanded my awareness. So that's how opened up possibilities that had I just chosen to spend 5 days in Portugal with my great friends, as great as that would have been, it wouldn't have expanded me in the direction that I wanted to go in the entrepreneur and business space. I can go and have 5 days with my buddies doing that in another way. But if I'm intentionally trying to grow, I may sometimes have to separate my growth group from buddy group and be okay that they don't necessarily have to be all in one.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the reason why I invited different people from different industries and different mindsets, because they challenge you. You start to realize I met so many people here so far since being here, and you start to wonder, like, what business are you in? Like that business, like it's like,
Yeah.
what is that even possible?
Is
Like,
that a
and
thing? Is that
yeah,
even
is
a
that even a
thing? Yeah.
thing? Exactly. And it's amazing what people are doing out there. And when you dive deep into them, I'm like, I don't understand. Like there are probably actually two or three people that you met on the weekend. They tell me what I kind of get what they do, but I could never
Yeah.
explain what they do. Like it is so
Yeah.
foreign to me, because I've been in the health, care space for so long, for 24 years, 25 years.
Mm.
What they do is like, I didn't even know that existed. And it's like,
Yeah.
this is what we mean by being in a silo. When you're in a silo,
Yeah.
like you think that your profession is or your thing, healthcare is a big thing, but you think that that's the only important thing in the world. But you go, oh no, these people there's some really amazing people doing some really amazing things in this world. And you go, man, like, how did you even come up with that idea? And
Yeah.
the businesses, the startups, and people pay millions and millions of dollars for these businesses. And you're like, wow, like
Yeah.
I can't believe that. And so
Yeah.
this is why I think that's really it's exciting to me. I still can't explain what they do, but it's like, that's how you grow. That's how you
Mm.
force yourself to realize. And
Mm.
these are where the new ideas come from, because you're trying to extract new ideas from outside your industry to help you make your industry better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the thing. I mean, that's what I kind of crave on all the time.
Yeah.
It's like you just meet these amazing people and you're just like, man, some smart people in the world. But like you said, you need to be in a position where, like, I made one comment at the beginning of the conference, or not, sort of retreat, of saying, I am, I want to be almost like the dumbest person in this room, because then I know I'm in the
Yeah.
right room, right?
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of ego, let going of ego, to do that, to put yourself in a
Yeah.
position, because most of us want to. I've been in so many seminars and conferences, like there's so much peacocking of like, I am the best, and
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
no, that's the wrong room. Like
Yeah.
that's definitely don't want to be in that room. I
Yeah.
want to be in a
Yeah.
room where I'm surrounded by people that can elevate me in my life, and because there's so much out there that we just don't know.
Yeah, man, you definitely achieved that, and and I think that was the real catalyst. I walked away thinking that, and sometimes it's really interesting because the learnings don't always happen like the way you structured it was beautiful. We had information sessions for a portion of the day, then we went off and there was an experience. I'm not basically disclosing anything that wasn't disclosed in socials, and then we went out and had dinner, so we celebrated. So, but some of the biggest learnings were when you weren't necessarily in class or discussion mode necessarily. You were perturbating and thinking about what was happening, and then you got to discuss something with someone along the way while you're, heck, axe throwing, and you're throwing an axe, and in between that, you're talking, you're basically, trying to psych each other out. But in there's wisdom and gold in these little nuggets that happen, and you don't even realize that you're absorbing it. And I always love that. And I'll tell you one thing that I know well too. We were doing the axe throwing, Laurence. And this was when you catch yourself, right? So we were doing the axe throwing, right? And for everybody who wasn't there, Laurence won one of the rounds, did exceptionally well.
No, I didn't. I didn't win any of the rounds.
Oh, you did? Oh, no, you lost one. Sorry, that was James.
No,
That's why
I came very close, but I lost it by 1 point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, that's right. James just came over the top. But what I took out of that whole experience is, like, in the first round, I was hitting the board, but none of the axes would stick. And I'm like, man, everybody's 5, 6, 10 points, and mine poof down. And I just couldn't work it out. And I had a whole lot of coaching from everybody, do this, do that. And I was doing that. But one of the things I realized is that what I have done a lot of my life quite often is having a taller presence. I've sometimes not used my full force because I don't want to use the physicality. So I kind of held back a little bit. And that wasn't serving me at all. And I think one of the women said, hey, listen, I think you just need to put more power into it. I went, okay, I'll try that. I've tried everything else. And boom, it stuck. And then it stuck. And then it stuck. But what I realized is, okay, where else in my world do I do that? Right. So there's so many, when you do experiential learning, you can look at it and you go, hey, it's an isolated event. But then you go, no, where else does this apply? And so I tell you, this is what I mean by it's set off so many uh, tangential conversations and thoughts in my mind because it's suddenly gone by being around these people. It's expanded my consciousness and awareness. So that's what's been going on.
Well, that's an amazing insight to have. And one of the reason why I create these experiences like games, like axe throwing, I've always wanted to. I've been thinking
Yeah,
about doing axe throwing for like at least 6 years, and I just never found a venue
yeah,
to do it at. And when I
yeah,
found out in Lisbon, finally the place I've actually live in now actually had axe throwing. I'm
yeah.
like, I'm putting this on the agenda. I don't know. I don't care how. I'm
Oh,
going to put it in somewhere. And yeah, even if that's a lesson that you got, I mean, that's great because I
yeah,
think that games, when we participate in games and fun competition, it brings a different side of us, right? Like, I mean, it brings up all this, sometimes insecurity, sometimes confidence, sometimes focus. Like, man, when James was so focused that day, like, I
yeah,
he was so on, and he didn't let anything rattle
yeah.
him. And I was
No,
trying to rattle him because I know, like, I'm trying to win this thing, and I'm just going to trash talk as much as I can. And sure enough, he
yeah,
just stuck to his guns and just stayed focused, and
yeah,
that's awesome, right? To be able to pull that off.
yeah.
And Ronsley, same thing. I don't know if
And how
anybody
good a
noticed, but
life
man,
lesson is that? Yeah,
yeah,
how good a life lessons. Yeah, how good a life lesson is that? Like when you're same thing is like, hey, when you're focused on your objective, and no matter what noise is going on outside of you, you're there to deliver, and you just focus on it. So yeah, totally. There was fun in there, but that's actually experiential learning. It's play. So I cut you off then for
no,
a moment
experiential
there,
learning
but
is absolutely true. Well, because really it was a three dog fight. It was me, Ronsley, and James, and Ronsley missed his last throw from memory, and he was out of the race. And you can tell he was
yeah,
pissed internally.
yeah.
And
He
in the
took
third
great
round,
joy when you missed one.
yeah, he took great joy when I
He
missed
took
mine.
great joy when you missed a shot.
And but then in his third round, he quietly, very quietly, stayed focused, and he said, "I am winning this thing." And he just kept on chipping away, and he
Yeah,
won. And I was like,
yeah,
"Man, you are
yeah,
pissed." You can, and I told him this
yeah,
afterwards, and that's the thing. You start to see it. It goes, "Yeah, we all mega competitive internally, right?" And there's nothing wrong with that. It's like harnessing in the right way, right? And the thing is that what I learned about these games is like you start to realize it's a competition against yourself and how you act, and you start picking an
yeah,
awareness of like because how you show up in the game is how you show up in life. You just don't realize it.
yeah,
And by playing in
yeah.
the game, if you're so what I'm really happy about with you, Jim, is that you made that awareness and made that connection while you're playing the game and going, holy crap, how am I doing that in real life? And yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you're tall, you got a strong stature. Yeah, you probably do hold back at times because you
Mm,
probably spent most of your life trying to, like, I know
mm,
a lot of
mm,
people who are tall spend most of their life trying not to be too tall because you don't want to be
mm,
overpowering,
mm,
right? But at
mm.
the end of the day, it's like, that's who you are. Like, what we need to be
Yeah,
ashamed about, right?
yeah, yeah.
And
So that was
I
a
think
big, that was a big one.
that's a huge lesson. That's awesome, man.
Mm.
That's a really, really powerful lesson. I think
Cool.
that should shift you a lot for sure.
100%. So how about we close out with just some, I guess, some takeaways in terms of what we spoke about today, Lawrence, in terms of,
Sure.
if someone was keen to change the trajectory of where they're going and they
Mhm.
really had to make some, I guess, some intentional decisions about where they would spend their time, their energy, and who they'd spend with, what were some things that they could really think about?
Yeah, I don't know who said this, but I know a friend of mine, Jason Gaynard, who's the head of Mastermind Talks, who I belong to, and we get together every year, sorry, and we meet these amazing people from all around the world, smart people. He's always has this thing around how there's moments. I don't want to tell his life story, but there's moments of time when he like lost everything, and he knew when he lost everything, what the most important thing to invest in was connections and friends, and he doubled down on that. When he didn't, he used his credit card to invest in people. And when you invest in people, which is what we're talking about today, is a powerful mechanism. Because a lot of times when we are in business, we focus so much on the business. But remember that connection is what makes that. Business can come and go. But if you build the right connections and you the right people, that can get you a long way, even when you're down. Because knowing the right people and them having the feeling that you care about them, is not that you creating value for their life in some way or another, I think long term will always pay back in hundredfolds. So I think my advice here from today, my takeaways is that that you need to invest in people before you invest in business, because I think the business will take care of itself. Investing in people isn't about trying to buy friendship here. I'm talking about investing in people that, meaning like putting time and effort. It's not about money here. It's about value, and asking the question of how do I create value for others? And when you can create value for others, you will always be remembered, and they will do things in return. They will help you, but it's the long game. It's not like you need immediate reciprocity. It's about knowing that they're there for you, investing in a relationship because you care, and they genuinely, you genuinely care, and they will know that feeling. And I think that will is a reward in itself. And for me, investing in connections in my life has been amazing. They're there for you for help when you need it, guide you through the most difficult times, and also being able to surround you to lift you and elevate you a higher game in your personal life and also in business. So that's my takeaway from, this conversation, is like making sure you intentionally invest in the people that surround yourself. And if certain people in your group is either unconsciously, are you putting yourself in a position where they're unconsciously pulling you down or not helping you elevate, then it's time to maybe shift a little bit. Just remember, I think that your friendship can change. Your circles can change. Be okay with that. It doesn't mean you don't love them. It just means that you're evolving, and you will always love. Like, it's like friends and family. It's like, I love my friends and family, but I don't have to surround myself with them all the time. Because let's face it, friends and family, like sort of your close friends, like your high school friends and family, are not always the ones that are supposed to be close to you, because they could be a negative factor rather than a positive factor. So be okay to evolve, be okay to be intentional, to choose your closest 5 people, and you can always still love everybody, but you don't have to surround yourself with them. That's my take. What are yours?
Actually, you pretty much covered every one of the points that I was going to.
Sorry, Jim.
No. That was actually great. It's great because I think. I was just sitting back with popcorn enjoying the show. I was actually just saying. I was just thinking to myself, "Yep, that's it. Is intention, and really just being true to yourself would probably be the only thing that I would say." And really, I think you summarised pretty much what I was going to say as well. So I don't think I need to repeat that. I think that was really good and concise and representative of how I feel as well.
Well, if you, the listeners and the viewers, we might not know you personally, but if you're listening and watching this and you feel like this has been helpful, then make sure you listen to us every single week, and we can be your, one of your closest friends to give you wisdom and advice. So let that sink in, and make sure how you do that, you subscribe, and comment and let us know how this has been affecting your life. But most importantly, like I said, please do share this with other people who you feel like would get a lot of benefit out of this. And you never know on how this could change someone else's life and trajectory towards their success. So this is Wabi Sabi. This is me and Jim. I hope that you find us on our socials, on YouTube, on Facebook, or on Spotify, or however you listen to these podcasts and watch these videos. Please share them and like them and comment, and we'll see you on the next episode.